The Utah Utes were able to add a flip from Boise State. That's right. They flipped a linebacker. So that linebacker now going to be joining the Utah Utes. What will he bring to the program? That's what we're going to discuss on today's Locked On Utes.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen and view of the day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. If it's your first time listening to this show, make sure you like and subscribe. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. My name is JT Wistrcill, former intern inside the University of Utah Athletic Department. Excited to be joined by Alma, being a radio producer for the KSL Sports Zone. On today's episode, we're going to talk a little bit of scheduling stuff. We're going to focus more so on the game time, but we'll touch on all of the recently announced future opponents that Utah has as well, and just talk about the fact that we are 90 days away from Utah football. Can't wait to get that underway. And one thing that's really exciting for Utah is they are starting to pick up some steam on the recruiting trail. It's been lacking. They only had 2 recruits and one decommit, so now you are back, but now you got 3, so it's a little more exciting if you're Utah. But yeah, this is something that they were able to flip. LaGary Mitchell, a linebacker from Boise State, who's now coming over to join the Utah football program. The class of 2026 Madarian High product is 6'3", 210 pounds. He did a little bit of everything there. First team All-State coming over from Idaho, but this is a guy who definitely adds something to the linebacker room. We can talk about what in a moment, but this was just a big get, Alma, for Utah, a team that hadn't had a lot on their 2026 recruiting class yet. So great flip for Utah to be able to steal him from Boise.
And especially with him being a local guy, being from Meridian, Idaho, Boise State, it almost seemed like it was a lock for him, being a 3-star recruit and the versatility that he brings to the field. I thought that Boise State was essentially a lock, but, Coach Swan, he pursues when he sees a very gifted linebacker, and we've seen that through his tenure, and you've seen what linebackers he's been able to produce, whether it's Devin Lloyd or Francis Bernard, Mohamed Diabate, Nephi Sewell, and then even currently with Granny Reed and Lander Barton, you can see that he looks for guys that are versatile, whether they're in zone coverage, man, or if they can provide some sort of pressure on the defensive line. So Mitchell has shown it through his high school tape that he can provide all of that. And given his size, like you said, 6'3", 210 pounds, he should be able to be a threat on the defensive end. And whoever's on that offensive line and the opposing quarterback, they're going to struggle to figure out where he's going to be positionally because, again, he's just phenomenal across the field. And you just don't know where to place him because he's going to do so well across the way.
He does. This guy, when I turn on the tape, I see a really strong blitzer. That was something I noticed right away. Okay, this is a guy who's going to be able to get home and finish the sack as well. Film study was really good. You can just tell he's a guy who's prepared. He knows what the offense is trying to do, knows where he needs to be, and he's able to execute. And he's able to beat those offensive linemen, too, at times where they're going to try to set the edge. He's able to get around them and turn things back to the inside. He has that quick first step, too. Able to rip out fumbles. I loved a couple of the forced fumbles he was able to get in there. And that's just an effort thing, too. Like, if you're talking about, hey, I'm watching a guy force fumbles, like he's flying to the ball. He's doing the extra little things to try and get the ball out. I love that. Takes good angles too. Physical, can take on blockers, got good speed as well. Just athletic too. I mean, played running back and wide receiver. You mentioned that versatility, Alma. This is a guy that I feel like could do a couple of really good things. And I trust Colton Swan's evaluation of these guys too. And I know he's a 3-star, but this is a chance too. It's not, we've seen a lot of guys who aren't just, hey, I know people a lot of times will be like, oh, we want a 4-star. Well, this Utah team, 2s and 3 stars are what really built them, made them into a powerhouse. I think Mitchell has a chance to be a contributor. I think we'll probably have to wait till 27. I think he's going to use that red shirt year just to continue to add a few more things, but I really liked what I saw on tape from him.
And like you mentioned, like he has that aggressiveness to him. And I mean, some people might see that as a positive, but you could also look at it as a potential negative because he's more of a turnover hunter. So when he gets back into coverage, he's looking to force those fumbles and create those incompletions. But if he overcommits to those sort of things, that might lead to a big open play. Or if he maybe blitzes towards the quarterback and gets a little too aggressive trying to force that fumble rather than securing the sack, knowing how the Big 12 is, you have a lot of quarterbacks that are more on the mobile side. So that's one thing that I think if he does take that redshirt year, maybe Coach Swan is able to ingrain in him that, hey, I know that you can do this and you are the big physical guy that can produce these type of plays, but maybe you need to be a little more methodical and maybe try and confirm that you're going to get the tackle or get the incompletion rather than trying to create the big highlight play every single time. Yeah. But with that aggression that he does have, absolutely a huge positive, something that as you start seeing some of these older players start to graduate and make their way towards the NFL, you're going to need that sort of Utah culture to make its way up through their roster. And, you know, in a day and age where you never know if people are going to stick around from year to year, it'd be really nice to know if Mitchell can commit himself to Utah, get to their way of play, and be able to transfer that into their day-to-day practices and eventually out into Rice Equity.
Well, you mentioned something that's very interesting too, is the fact that you see guys transfer out and don't always stick around. Signing day is still a way off. So I don't know Mitchell. Like, he very well could be a guy that this is it. He's locked into Utah and he won't go anywhere else. But he did flip from Boise, and that is just something in the new era of recruiting. Like, Utah, I don't think they'll be like, okay, we got Mitchell. Like, we've gotten a couple linebackers now. We're good. It's no, you should stay on the linebackers that you're staying on and need to keep those relationships, especially not Mitchell, but some guys will continue to take their visits, we know, after they commit to, which is always something like, okay, you're committed, but you're not fully committed if you're still taking other visits too. So it's just another kind of landmine you have to navigate in this new recruiting landscape of you will have guys who say they're committed. I mean, we just saw Dan Lanning jump in a pool with a dude, and then 2 weeks or 3 weeks later, that recruit no longer is going to Oregon anymore. Like, this is the world of recruiting we live in. So really like what Mitchell brings. I think he's going to be a Utah Ute someday, and I'm excited to see what he'll do. Now, the question is, how quickly will he play? I mentioned 27 already. I do think he's a guy, freshman. Hey, it's really hard to play as a freshman. I think it will take some time. Because after this year, Utah's linebacker room does take a hit. They lose Lander, Barton, and they lose Leavani Damuni. So who will be the guys in 2026? I look at Jonathan Hall right away. Jonathan Hall, to me, is a guy who's just continuing to grow and get better as a linebacker. Thought he grew from the start of the season to the end, and it's another offseason playing that position. I loved what he showed as a safety at Utah a couple of years ago and liked the flashes we've seen at linebacker time. So I think he's going to be the guy at 26. Then after that, Utah will bring in transfers. I'd be shocked if they didn't, just to get some more veterans. But who steps up? Trey Reynolds has been buying his time for a little bit. You know, there's no Sione Fotu on this roster anymore. So then Cyrus Polo, Christian Thatcher, two freshmen that I am high on, think could maybe compete and produce a little bit this year. But if not, those are guys that I do expect to see in the future. That's what I'm mentioning, a guy like Matakai Halu, the guy recruiter came back from Stansbury High School. He was on his mission. Now he's back. I loved his game back in the day. And Lopes is another guy too, Kenai Lopes, that I think can be a productive member of this linebacker group. After we move on this season from the Lander Barton and Leavani Damuni, how do you see Utah's linebacker room for the 26th season?
I believe that they're going to focus more on trying to utilize the versatility amongst their players. Like, I mean, you mentioned Jonathan Hall. They're going to try and utilize every possible positional mismatch they can. So you'll probably see more guys a little more on the leaner side go into that linebacker position, just so then they can keep up with those crossing routes. Just because it seems like the Big 12, you got your one street guy, and then everybody wants to run slants across the middle. So you need to have guys that can keep up as they cross. But even talking with the 2026 class, you got guys like Preston Pitts, who, in my opinion, might be good enough to crack the roster his freshman year. So I'm hoping that will be some sort of motivation for LaGary Mitchell. But, I mean, you're going to start seeing more packages, in my opinion, based off of how the roster is currently set up. You're going to have to start utilizing more of the depth of your linebacker core rather than your same 4 to 6 guys in and out, just based off of how we've seen things and the packages that are currently being ran. But overall, I think that the linebacker room is definitely going to take a dramatic hit after this year.
Yeah.
And it's going to be really crazy to see how this team is going to fully develop in 2026, because everybody is going to be switching positionally, in my opinion. So nothing is set in stone when it comes to the Utah Utes. And I think that's what makes them a little more exciting.
You're absolutely right. Hunter Andrews, he's a tight end now, was a running back. Like, it's just crazy what this team does. They shuffle guys around in this way, and because once again, modern world of college football, I would be stunned if Utah does not add a transfer linebacker. Like, I just don't see how that doesn't happen with what they're losing. And I'll probably be a veteran guy who will be a projected starter. So there's a lot of work to do reshaping that linebacker room, just like there's a lot of work for Utah football to do this season. And we do have some of the game times that got announced for the first week. I actually don't love one of them. I'm going to tell you which one that is in one moment. Today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. The NBA Finals are here, and every night is going to deliver highlight-worthy performances and major momentum shifts, and you just can't miss moments. I mean, whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and just live play. You can head over and check out the player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play, and once again, you can do that before tip and even during live play. Which players do you think are going to show up in the biggest moments? Shea, Tyrese Halliburton, Chet Holmgren, Pascal Siakam. Who is it going to be? And how could tracking their trends help you build your next bet? You also, don't forget, you can sign up for $200. If you bet $5, you get $200 in bonus bets added for the excitement. If you've got a read on who's heating up, why not hit it up with a same-game parlay? New to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Alma, I'm excited that we have schedules, times that we are getting closer to kickoff of the season. And 4 games were scheduled, and we are talking about game time announcement. We'll talk about the future games that Utah mentioned that they're going to play down the road in a moment. But I want to start with these game times first. You have August 30th. That's the kickoff against UCLA in the Rose Bowl, 9 p.m. Mountain Time. Then you have Cal Poly, Utah, 4 p.m. Mountain Time. Then you have Wyoming, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. And then all the way November 28th, we jump all the way there, Utah versus Kansas at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. I want to go to the marquee one right away. And maybe eventually that Kansas one will be. I actually think it has a great – both those teams to me are bounce-back teams in the Big 12. The UCLA-Utah one, I'm disappointed by this. And I know, like, hey, it's 8 p.m. Mountain Time. Like, it's not – or not 8 p.m., excuse me. It's 9 p.m. Mountain Time. Like, it's not too late. My issue with it is what happened with Pac-12 After Dark. The East Coast didn't tune in. This was a major, and I actually think it's a missed opportunity by the network. There are a lot of Tennessee fans, for lack of a better word, that wanted to probably tune in, and maybe they will, but I don't know if they'll finish the game watching it. They want to watch it and see Nico fail. I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying that is a fact. Like, Tennessee fans are rooting against Nico Iamava. And the nation is curious to see how Nico's going to look. Dumping, and I'm going to use, I do use that word, this game that late at night, West Coast will watch, East Coast will not. This was a chance for Utah to make a statement on national television, still is, but it will get lost in the shuffle now because half the country is going to be asleep by the time this one ends.
And I'm even thinking about myself as far as my job, because, I mean, we do our hour-long pregame, and then we cover the whole game, so it's 3 hours there, and then we do an hour-long post-game after, then the editing for the audio immediately following the post game. So it's going to be a long night for myself or anyone else, any of our other producers that may be working that game. So when I saw that 9 o'clock time frame, I was like, man, I'm going to be in the studio for so long that night. But as far as the national audience, like, yeah, you get them on Fox, and it's the perfect opportunity to show Utah as a changed program.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, with UCLA getting their brand new quarterback, and like you said, Tennessee wanting to root against their former starter, you're just sitting there and you're like, this could have been a much earlier game, and not by much. You could have made it like a 4 o'clock or a 6 o'clock, and you could have had larger numbers to watch this. But when you look at that time, it's almost like the NCAA didn't think that many people would tune into this game to start. So it almost comes off like a slap in the face, but at the same time, why not prove people wrong? You should have stayed up to watch this amazing game that Utah and UCLA had, just fighting it off in the Rose Bowl. But, I mean, a majority of people are just going to wait till they see the highlights the next morning on SportsCenter. So it's going to be a rough one. I personally wish it was a little bit earlier, but, I mean, there's only so many time slots you can work.
There are. This is what I don't understand. So we're going to go text, and I'm really not trying to be the old man, just like get off my lawn. That's not my goal right now. Fox starts their schedule with arguably, that's a little maybe too much, but one of easily the top 5 games of the college football season to me, excluding, does not talk about Utah stuff. Ohio State, Texas, that is unreal. You have that game, and you have a chance to follow that up. And I'll explain why in a moment. It's a different level, but with something intriguing, one of the biggest storylines of the offseason. And I truly believe it was a dark day for college sports when Nico said, coming back to Tennessee, I'm leaving this team that I got to the playoffs with, this city that's embraced me. He's walking out with Morgan Wallen before country concerts. That's what he decided to leave. go to UCLA. That caught the nation by storm. You could lead with Ohio State and Texas. And I'm not saying this is the second most exciting game of week 1, but with maybe the second most exciting game you can get. You know what they're instead following it with? South Dakota at South Dakota. Is it South Dakota? Yeah, just South Dakota. South Dakota at Iowa State. What are we doing? That's insane to me that you wouldn't want then Utah to go there. And that's a 3:30. So I know that'd be a little earlier on the West Coast, but I don't care. The entire nation's watching. I mean, and heck, I bring up early. Utah and Kansas are playing at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. I'm excited about that because at that point, I think Utah is going upwards, right? And then at the end of the season, you have a chance to make a statement against what I think is a good Jayhawks team. So I know I'm a little fired up right now for some random schedule times, but I really think this was a missed opportunity by Fox because I think this is I think this is a top 10 matchup week 1, and it's thrown at 11 p.m. Eastern time.
And plus you're looking at two historical franchises, whether it's Utah talking about Kyle Whittingham, just, his coaching tenure continuing when there was so much speculation that he might be retiring after last year. And then you have UCLA, which, I mean, you could talk about UCLA for hours about their athletic significance to the NCAA.
Yep.
So even though both of those teams may have not been the most impactful teams when it comes to ratings or performance, you still can't deny the history of both of these programs. So again, I think it's also a missed opportunity. It should have been a much earlier game, especially when you mention who's playing at 3:30. Like that's a game that I think should be like on ESPN Plus.
It should.
That's just me.
What's the difference between that game and Utah Tech versus Southern Utah versus Utah last year? Like that game was on ESPN Plus. Why would this game not be? But they are going to have in the TV, like, you see this all the time in the TV industry, like you will have an audience from one show and you will experience a drop off when it goes into your next show and your next program, right? You want to minimize that drop off as much as you can. Fox would not do this. Fox PR will not report what the drop off is because it's going to be terrible. Like I cannot even imagine the people who are like, okay, like Ohio State just wrapped up. And once again, I am not saying that Utah, like every team is like, oh, we absolutely have to watch Utah. There'd be other really good games on, but you're just having a much better chance of competing at. Also, this isn't even the first game Iowa State is playing. Iowa State is playing in Farmageddon the week before. So it's not even like it's the intrigue of like, ooh, Big 12 runner up. It's not. And I know we're getting in the weeds. And yes, Utah should be excited to be on Fox, but this is a brand new team that's been on like these big networks routinely. I don't feel like we need to be like, oh, just happy to be there. It's like, no, I think you can ask for more than that too. So that's just how I look at this. Going back to the rest of the games, I think that, look, I'm totally good with them. Yeah, 4 p.m. for Cal Poly. And hey, you mentioned ESPN Plus. That's where it's going to be. Then you get Utah taking on Wyoming. Last year, Utah went to Utah State, and that one was on CBS Sports. This one will be as well too, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Perfect. Good time. Everyone on the West Coast will be tuning in there. And then I already mentioned, I really like the Utah-Kansas game being at that noon Eastern time slot, 10 a.m. Utah had a chance last season as they were trying to at least get to bowl eligibility, or I should say at least, if Utah lived up to their end of the bargain, how great would that game on Big Noon Kickoff have been between Utah and Colorado? Utah did not live up to the bargain. They actually made it a little bit of a game until Isaac Wilson threw that one interception. But I think that game, the last week of the regular season, is a really nice opportunity for Utah. And I do like that Fox is putting them there. I don't know if it'll get Big Noon Kickoff, but the fact that it will be the first game on that Friday, I do think, or they want a Big Noon Kickoff Friday, it'll be on Saturday. But I think that is something exciting. So what do you make of the other 3 game times? And do you feel the same way as I do about that last one being at noon?
So that last game, that I think that's the one that got me the most, because the day after Thanksgiving, but it's also a 10 a.m. kickoff locally. And I mean, they don't know if it's going to be on ABC or ESPN, but with it being the final game of the season, I think that is perfect.
You're right. I said Big Noon Kickoff. That is totally my bad. That one is on ABC and ESPN. I'm so mad at Fox right now. That's all I was seeing red. So thank you for correcting that, sir. Thank you.
I got you. But with that game being on a Friday, it just seems a little strange. Like it's almost like they're trying to wrap things up a little bit quicker. But I mean, like you said, I think that this will be the year where both Utah and Kansas, they'll come into this season wanting to prove that they aren't down in the dumps with their program. They're not in this big rebuild to make sure that their program can be good in a year or two from now. They're wanting to make an impact right now. So I think that once we get down to that point, it's going to have a much larger impact than Utah versus UCF last year. So the 10 a.m., I just think that that's the biggest concern for me because, again, you're coming right off of a holiday, going right into Black Friday, and, some people might miss the game just because of how early it might be. That's my opinion on that one. As far as like Utah versus Cal Poly and at Wyoming, those ones, I think those times are perfectly fine, especially with them being on larger networks. I do think Utah does deserve that sort of recognition given how much change has happened with them over the offseason. I don't think you can judge them based off of their performance last year by any means, given how many different changes have happened this offseason. So I'm excited to see if Utah can not only prove that they're no longer should be viewed as an underdog at UCLA to start off their season, but continue that momentum once they go home to Cal Poly and then go back onto the road to take on Wyoming and essentially solidify themselves as one of the dogs in the Big 12. And in my opinion, I think that they should be able to, not easily, but I think that there should be an opportunity for them to go 3-0 to start off this season.
They should go 3-0. And if they don't, I'm not going to say you write them off because we saw this Utah team just a couple years ago go 1-2 and then bounce back and win the Pac-12 that season. But it would be really deflating. Even the UCLA lost to me because it's just like, hey, if UCLA was in the Big 12, and I'm sure there's some Big 10 or SEC snob who would love to come and be like, well, they're in the Big 10 or SEC, they could beat anyone. But like UCLA would not win the Big 12. I'm sorry, they just wouldn't. Like to me, they're a middle of the pack to bottom tier like team if they're in the Big. Honestly, I'd lean toward bottom tier. I just don't, especially with the new pieces and things, they have to fit in, especially week one. Like once that offense gets to gel more. Because, yes, there's some gelling that has to occur with Utah's offense, but Devin Dampier and Jason Beck, they know each other. Nico is coming in at the springtime and working with entirely new personnel there. Utah has some new personnel, as we mentioned, some things, but it's because of the same offense. It's a lot easier of a transition for Dampier, and we know how good Utah's defense is. It should travel. And the Bruins defense has, even though they were improved last year, they have some concerns. So, yeah, Utah should start 3-0 to me. And you do mention an interesting point, like, hey, that's 10 a.m., on Black Friday. That game will be for Utah against Kansas. So how does that affect the local viewership? I'm curious for you guys. For me, I like that it's a 10. Like I'm good with that. Like I'm just get up and watch the game. I'm fired up about that. Also on the road. So like tailgating isn't a thing that way. If it was at home, I'd understand a little bit more of the frustration because then your tailgating gets taken away, but you can do some visiting tailgating. Obviously you still can, but not the same when you can't go into the stadium. So for me, I look at that one and I'm just like, yeah, I love that that's on the national stage, but you mentioned some of the potential negatives with it. There is one thing that is not going to be negative about this, and that's this next topic, because Utah football is less than 90 days away from kicking off their 2025 season. I cannot wait. And not just because this is the offseason right now, and I talk about this team 5 days a week and I'm ready for some games to be played, but genuinely, I'm really excited. And I think when you say, hey, JT, you're less, if I'm going to ask myself this question, basically, you're less than 90 days away from Utah football. What are you most excited about? I think it's really simple. It's Devin Dampier. I really want to see this guy in a Utah Utes uniform going to work on the field. I think the ceiling is tremendously high for him, and he is the biggest X factor, I believe, on this team. If he can make the leap successfully from G5 to P4 and be even a top 8 quarterback in this conference, I think that Utah has a great shot to do what they wanted to do the year prior and win the Big 12. Easier said than done, but I do think they will be one of the top 5 contenders in the conference if they can just get top 8 quarterback play out of Dampier. So I'm most excited to see Dampier.
See, you're focusing on the air. I'm focusing on the ground. I'm really excited with the addition of Mark Atuaia. Just because if you look at the production that he had at Washington State, just even going from 2023 to 2024, there was roughly about 1,100 yards difference between their production in their backfield.
Yep.
And even per yards per game. Back in 2023, you were looking at roughly, I think it was 85 yards per game from their rushing attack. Last year, they were at 166.8 yards per game. So even though Utah's not going to have Mekhi Bernard, I'm really excited to see what the addition of Atuaia is going to do for that run game and how much of an impact that will have for opposing defenses. Because Utah has been known to always have a strong run game. And especially when you go back to times with Snoop and Zach Moss, that was their triple option, and nobody knew who was going to be running with the ball, but you knew that they were the bona fide threat no matter which player had the ball in their hands. So with Atuaia bringing that over, if you bring enough attention to the run game, how much is Devin Dampier going to be able to just do a nice play action pass and just get touchdowns left and right? So start from the ground and it will build your air game.
I like it. And Wayshawn Parker, 700 yards last year at Washington State. He's ready to take on the load for this Utah team. I think I like Naquari Rogers too, Devin Green. That's a nice backfield. I really liked what I saw of the Utah backs in the spring game. And I do think, obviously, to me, there's no position in football, and I do believe this honestly, that's more dependent on another position than the running backs are the offensive line. Utah should have a pretty good offensive line. I have several times listed, I have major questions about the interior of the offensive line, but I at least think the cohesiveness will make that unit better playing another season. So I still think they're going to be a good unit. And we know the tackles are, the best tackle tandem in the country for my money. So incredibly excited about what they'll bring too. And yeah, just excited to see this team on the field. Is Tobias Merriweather going to step up as their wide receiver one? Is he going to be a guy on the outside? Is this offense overall? What does Jason Beck's offense at Utah look like? We saw a lot of it in New Mexico, obviously, but there'll be new wrinkles. How does that work? Who steps up on the defensive side of the ball? And obviously too, Alma, is this Kyle Whittingham's swan song? That is something that is incredibly massive too. There's a lot of questions this team has to answer, and they're looking to bounce back in a major way, because not even making a bowl game last year was hard to fathom when you were kind of universally the media's pick to win the Big 12.
Yeah, it was really rough, especially being on the media side, just every single week having to answer the question, like, is this it? Does Utah still have it in them? Do you need to find a new regime? Is it your offense that's really struggling? Can you win games when it's just your defense consistently scoring? Which, if anybody's going to answer that, look at the University of Miami in the early 2000s. Yes, you could win games with just defense. But that is not how football is played anymore. You have to have strong offensive production. You can no longer rely on just some heavy-hitting safeties and linebackers through and through. You have to be one cohesive unit, and the way that this offensive line is going to eventually mend its way together, I don't think that will be as much of a concern as it might look. But I think, again, once that offense gets going, defense is going to have more confidence in themselves. And the defense had enough confidence in themselves last year. Now imagine if they get to some winning football with their offense, putting some numbers up on the board.
It's incredibly exciting to think about, just like it is the fact that we are less than 90 days away from Utah football getting back to work. Alma, you're the man. Thank you so much for coming on. Please let everyone know where they can find everything you do at.
So you can follow me on X at AlmaBean23. You can also find me on YouTube at Bean on the Scene 801, Instagram at AlmaBean15. There's a lot of really cool projects that I'm going to be working on in the near future. So if you want to tune in, by all means, go there, and we'll give you updates, whether it's the Utah Utes or any other local sports team here in the state of Utah. I got it all there for you.
Awesome. You're the man. Thank you, Alma. Appreciate you coming on.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
That's going to do it for today's Locked On News. We'll be back with you tomorrow talking the latest in Utah football and especially diving into some intriguing recruiting information. We hope you'll join us then.